A very good morning, dear students. Welcome to e-learning classes of Sacred Hearts of the subject economics. Dear students, in the previous lecture, we have started concept significance of human capital formation, and we have also discussed about the topic problems facing human capital formation in India. Initially we will have a small recap of the first topic, that was the significance of human capital formation. So the very first point was change in emotional and material environment for growth. It used to make the conducive environment, whether it is emotionally or materially, for the growth and development. Thereafter, the second point, higher productivity of physical capital. Human resource enables or increases or magnify the production capacity of the physical capital, because ultimately it is utilized by the human resource. Thereafter, we have discussed the third point, higher rate of participation and equality. When the particular person will be skilled and educated, the participation in the economic activity will be definitely there, and it will bring the greater amount of employment generation in the economy, and which will definitely going to rectify the situation of inequality in the economy. The second topic that we have discussed, that was the problems facing human capital formation in India. So what are the different obstacles in the process of human capital formation? The very first is the rising population, or we can say population explosion. And population explosion is reducing the per head availability of education, health facilities, fooding, clothing and shelter, and so on. Second, brain drain. Here, brain drain consists of the moving of the top officials or the scholars people to the rest of the world, to the other countries. So brain drain is somewhere somehow is creating a obstacle in the human capital formation. Thereafter, the third point, that is a deficient manpower planning. Although India is not having the shortage of manpower, but definitely we can say that there is a deficiency of the manpower planning. Fourth point, inefficient on the job training in primary sector. Primary sector is one of the most unorganized sector, and that is why there are no sufficient on the job training programs. And the last one, low academic standards. In the race of getting being educated, in the race of getting the higher literacy, the people who even don't deserve are opening the schools and the universities and the colleges, and they have meant it just a source of profit, in which the academic standards have been neglected. All these were the point that we have discussed in the previous lecture. Dear students, today we are going to discuss the topic education as an essential element of human resource development, that is HRD. So let's get started. Human If we talk about the education, so education seems to be one of the most important source or the means of the HRD, human resource development. What does the education means? So education implies the process of teaching, training and learning. Teaching, training and learning, all the three elements are included simultaneously. See further, it improves knowledge, skill, expertise, experience, and many more stuff in the human being. Education is the undercurrent of economic and social change. That means through the education only, education is the one element through which we can bring reforms in the two important sectors, in the economic sector as well as in the social sector. Now, see further, if we compare India in comparison to the rest of the world, so our expenditure on education is far less, and even the spread of education in India has not been so encouraging. So, just see over here, according to the census 2011, barely 74.04% of the population is literate. Literate is just ability to read, write, and understand one language. in against to the 90 to 95% in the developed countries. Just see over here a notice there, education and literacy are not identical terms. Literacy is having a very narrow concept in comparison to the education. Now see, what is the importance and objectives of education? So the very first point, education produces responsible citizens. Citizens become more sensible and responsible to the nation as well as to the society. It develops science and technology, which brings innovation and makes our life more comfortable. Next point, it facilitates use of natural and human resources in all regions of the country. That means resources can be managed properly. It expands the mental horizon of the people outlook. It used to change the outlook, it used to change the way of thinking, it used to change the way to look any certain situation or to get the good solution or the better solution. It helps economic development through the greater participation. Higher amount of participation is there, which results in the further growth and development, and it results in the equality. Next, it promotes the cultural standards of the citizens, and the last, it develops human personality. The overall personality used to be groomed up and used to be developed. Now, the next topic, need for government intervention. What is the meaning of intervention? That means interference in education and health. Why government is considered important for these two sectors, or why government have been making interference in these two sectors, that we are going to study. The very first point, these sectors need huge investment with a very high fixed expenditure. A huge investment is needed even in the form of fixed expenditure. Second, it is difficult to expect private investors to invest in health and education unless they are allowed to recover the huge amount of cost, because the private sector is having the motive of profit. So at last it will be oriented to the profit only, whether it is education or the health. Third, people in a poor country like ours, that means India, the developing country, cannot afford the high prices of education and health. It is not in our purchasing power. A lot of poor are there in our country who cannot afford the high prices of hospitals as well as of the private schools. So, the next point, individual consumers of these services are unaware about the quality and cost of services, which leads to exploitative behavior of private service providers. As most of the people don't know about the basic of these two sectors, so there are possibility that the private sector may become exploitative for the people who are unaware about the situation. The next one, when basic education and healthcare is considered as right of citizens, the government needs to make provision for free of cost education and health services. When it become right, then in that condition the government must come in front and provide these services which the government is already providing in our country. Now the last topic of today's lecture, that is the government expenditure on education. Although there are a lot of points, so I am just going to sum up the complete topic in some certain points. The very first point is expenditure incurred on education can be measured in two ways. And what are the two ways? The first, percentage of total expenditure of government, and the second one as a percentage of GDP. These are the two measures. Second point, the Education Commission 1964 to 66 has recommended that the government of India must spend 6% of GDP on education if it wants that there must be the proper spreadment of the education. Third point, in 1999, the government of India appointed the Tapas Majumdar committee. A committee have been created which estimated that the government would incur expenditure of rupees 1.37 lakh crore over the period of 10 years. And why? To bring all the children in the age group of 6 to 14 under the education cover, so that for covering the children between the age of 6 to 14 under the concept of education, so 1.37 lakh crore is to be expended by the government. Fourth point, in 2016-17, the expenditure on education has incurred to 4.38% of GDP. Still, we have not reached to the agenda that we have decided in 1964 to 66, that was 6%. Still, according to the fact and figures of 2016-17, we are at only 4.38%. Next point, most of the expenditure undertaken on the education goes to the elementary education. To which? To the elementary education. And now the next point, now the state is also participating anyhow, how much they can be participative in this concept. So the sixth point, in 2014-15, Himachal Pradesh incurred the highest expenditure on education, while the lowest expenditure was incurred by the Bihar. Except than these, some other facts are also there. If we talk about the central government, then central government, the 45,000 crore rupees annually have been spent on the education. Total percentage expenditure by the government, 80 to 90%. The parents of the children, 4 to 5%, and the private trust, 7%. It is in the total education system in the country that how much proportion which particular sector is having. So this is all about today. Today we have discussed about the concept of education as an essential element of HRD, human capital formation, in which we have discussed about the concept of education, importance and objective of education, thereafter need for government intervention in education, and the last but not the least, government expenditure on education. This is all for today. God bless you all of love.